everyone. Welcome to the Gamestar HQ podcast. My name is Jenny. I play professional rugby. And with me, I have the players NIL, Mark Costaster. Did I say that right?
No, but that's okay. Kester,
Coster?
close enough.
Okay. And Mark, why don't you do a better job of explaining what you do to the people than I am? So why don't you do that?
Great. Well, Jenny, it's nice to meet you, and thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about what I do. And I think it comes down to really two basic principles, and we can talk about it in depth any way that you want, but we built this company on two basic principles. The first is how do you use athletics to better your life, right? And for young athletes, it may be using athletics to get to college. And for college athletes, it may be using athletics to create a lifetime of opportunities, professional, personal, social. When your athletic career is over, the second principle of the business, the one that I live by, is how do you use athletics to better the lives of the people around you? And that's what I teach. I teach young people how to use athletics to better their lives, and I give them skills to better the lives of the people around them. We're in the name, image, and likeness NIL era, and that gets lots of attention. I know you want to talk about that. There's many layers to that. But what this era has done since July 1st, 2021, is it's awakened thousands, hundreds of thousands of athletes to the celebrity that they enjoy. And that is that society loves sports. I mean, look at the national championship game last night in football. How many millions watched it, right? We were all captivated and mesmerized by the great stories of those two teams. And if you go on social media, specifically Instagram, it's filled with athletes telling their daily life story. But how do you change that from a 4-year transactional mindset, how do I get to college, to a 40-year transformative mindset? How do you change your life forever? And that's what we teach.
Sorry, my dog's going crazy in the background. Um, I really love your, one second. I really love your mindset of creating humans past sport and using sport to develop them. And a lot of times it feels like people are like, this is so much money going into just sports, or that we're putting so much value on just sports. And I think those people don't truly understand what an impact, positive or negative, sports can have on a person.
Yeah, I call it passion. For those of us in the sports world, it was sports, right? I was a college athlete, you're a professional athlete, you're still, using your sport to create opportunities for yourself. It can be art, can be music, can be science, can be fashion, could be cars, could be watches, sneakers, could be anything. Culinary arts could be food. As long as you have a passion and that drives you. We focus on the sports world. That's my background. That's who I work with. But you're right. I mean, I think you have to have the passion for what you're doing and believe in. And there's a whole conversation around believing in yourself that sports can teach you and sports can give you that platform to launch into the future.
Yeah, I 100%. And speaking about kind of sports and NIL, because this has completely changed how athletes are going to attend school and where they decide to attend school. What are some big trends that you see with athletes choosing schools in regards to the NIL possibilities?
Well, since July 1st, 2021, the NCAA has removed all restrictions on athletes monetizing their name, image, and likeness and jeopardizing their college eligibility, right? There's a whole story about all the lawsuits that the NCAA lost and all of the progress that's been made over 40, 50 years. The bottom line is the NCAA released all of those restrictions without any guidance, without any guardrails, without any, predetermined best practices. And chaos has ensued and legal chaos. And what has happened, and it continues today, is that people with money, people with power, people with a passion for their alma mater, for their college or university, have influenced recruiting, retention, and payments to athletes to help win games. We call that pay for play. None of that actually has anything to do with name, image, and likeness. No one cares about their social media. No one cares about their community service. No one cares about their following. No one cares about their grades. They just care, can they run fast and jump high and help us win games? And so that's the news story that has dominated the NIL era. And that's what, if you walk down the street and ask 10 people about name, image, and likeness, two would probably say they don't know what it is. Eight would say they know what it is. And seven of them would say it's ruining college sports. That's just the facts of the way they've been presented. So we'll take that and we'll put that in a bucket called the 2%. And for the facts of it, it's Power Four football, which are the big four conferences, men's and women's basketball, and an occasional athlete here and there, a softball pitcher at Texas Tech, a gymnast at LSU, a volleyball player at Penn State. The average NIL deal continues to climb because those high-end 2%ers are getting more and more money. The House settlement has allowed 20.5 million in revenue sharing this year. But here's an interesting thing. In 2025, the median NIL deal did not change from 24. Median means half the deals were more and half the deals were less. That number is $50. 62% of all NIL deals are under $100. So the story has been hijacked by the news. The reality is mid-major sports, non-revenue sports, Division II, Division III athletes are not getting millions of dollars. They're not even getting thousands of dollars. They may be getting hundreds of dollars. Okay. And so I'm focused on the 98% because those are the kids that are probably not going to have a chance to play professional sports. Even at the Power Four level, it's a very small percentage. So we're focused on using their celebrity as an athlete, as I said, to create a 40-year mindset. So when you hear the facts, median NIL deal $50, 62% of all NIL deals under $100, now it kind of brings it into reality. And the reality is that kids and parents in high school are focused on making money at school and using that as a decision criteria about where they're going to go. But the reality is they're not going to get the money that they think.
Those numbers shock me. I yeah, I would think that it would be, I don't know what I thought, but I thought it would be different than that. But I mean, it makes sense because we see as a country that we value D1 sports and the big names. That is what we're all trying to tune into. And so kids, I was one of them, was thinking that I was going to get a college scholarship. And then I ended up going to a D3 school and there was no college scholarships. And I wish that I had NIL opportunities back then, but alas, here we are. So for those kids now who are below that median and they're $50, $100, like how can they capitalize on NIL at smaller schools? Because the I see the potential there.
Yeah. So what we've learned, and I spoke to 70 colleges and universities last year and thousands of students and athletes. We've learned two things. The most important thing to that group of athletes in college, I'm talking about two things: graduate and get a job. Right? Graduate and get a job. Okay. So how do we do that? So what we've done is we've taken NIL principles of personal brand development and marketing, things like that, and we've put it and condensed it into three universal skills. One is, how do you build a personal brand? And your personal brand is, what do people think about you when you're not in the room? Okay, really simple. Storytelling. How do you get the message out about who you are, what you stand for, what your principles are, what's important to you, what your passion is? How do you tell that story? Using platforms like LinkedIn or Instagram, for instance. Then the third universal skill is networking. And this is an art and a science at the same time. The science is using digital technology. The art is building a personal brand and telling a story. And the art is, how do you connect with people that can help influence you for the next 40 years? And so we put a target on the wall when we talk to college students and athletes. And we say, when you are a senior, if you want to have job options, not just take the only job that you're offered, it starts with 3,500 followers on LinkedIn, 3,500. And in order to do that, you have to start when you're a freshman. And it takes work and it takes consistency and it takes personal brand development and storytelling. and the networking aspect. But if you do that, I believe that you will have a better chance in a difficult job market right now when most of the college graduates are average, meaning they don't really have any LinkedIn connections. They're seniors with no LinkedIn profile. They're seniors with no job opportunities. And 55% of college graduates in the 2010s were underemployed when they graduated. 55% took a job that did not require their college degree. 45% remain underemployed 5 years post graduation. So it's like poverty. You start here, you can't get there. And so we're trying to use NIL principles and the NIL era to change all of those statistics.
So using NIL, building that network, an athlete, giving themselves options for post grad. Um, what I guess kind of my next question would be when they're going about doing this, how do you recommend athletes do that? And along the way, what are you seeing smaller, uh, that's not the right word, athletes who choose to attend smaller schools, what are they doing to set themselves up for post grad and not be maybe in thousands of dollars of debt or to have those job opportunities?
Yeah, so let me answer it two parts. The first part is let's talk about the statistics of NIL, real NIL, okay? Athletes as influencers, which there are plenty of Division III athletes that are making money in NIL, okay? They may not be making $100,000, but they are making money. And 85% of all NIL deals, real NIL deals, are based on social media, okay? Influencers. 60% are based on local businesses. So it's the pizza shop, the sushi store, the local insurance company, the car wash, which an athlete enjoys a celebrity in their hometown. Because if you're a college athlete, you probably were one of the better athletes in your senior class in high school.
Yeah.
You probably won some awards, maybe some championships were written up, pictures in the newspaper. People came to watch you play. How do you leverage that, right? 60% of local business of NIL deals are based on local business relationships. So those are two important statistics if you want to make money. If you want to use the NIL era to launch your career and build that 40-year mindset, you have to post on LinkedIn once a week. And we talk about the stories that you need to tell and the people you need to connect with. You have to force multiply, which is a concept that I have developed about how do you get one post to get in front of as many people as possible using hashtags, mentions, and connecting with people, right? And you have to identify 25 to 30 businesses, corporations, teams, organizations that you'd like to work for. 10 that you would take a job, 10 that would be awesome, and 10 would be dream companies. 10, 10, and 10. Let's call it 30. And you have to use LinkedIn to connect with people in that organization that will see your story, that will resonate with your brand, so that when there's a job opening, you're not just Jenny sending an email with a PDF resume for the first time. You're Jenny, who's been connected with me for 3 years. And we've actually had some interaction and actually talked on the phone once because she's really interested in our business and what we do. Right? Then your resume goes to the top of the list. Because the honest answer is, Jenny, resumes don't mean anything. They're a waste of time. Right? It's going into the AI bot. Personal relationships and connections and networking is what's going to get you a job. So that's what we teach.
You've brought up LinkedIn a handful of times, and as someone who's a little bit younger, I'm getting onto it more, trying to do what you're exactly saying is building those connections. And I guess sometimes it's hard to believe that LinkedIn really does have that much power. So like it does have that much power.
Yeah, absolutely. I built this business on LinkedIn relationships. I have 17,000 followers now and a very small niche business. I get 100,000 views a month on LinkedIn. It absolutely has that power. You cannot cold call somebody. You cannot send an email to somebody and get the same response as a direct message on LinkedIn or tagging them on LinkedIn and asking them for a comment. All right. The odds are much better for you. And you cannot share your brand story through an email, through a PDF. You LinkedIn is a great way for you to share your story and build that network. And we have hundreds of examples of that, case studies of students who are doing that and are gainfully employed today or headed towards great internships this summer.
That's fascinating. You also were talking about how these kids at smaller schools connecting with local businesses, which I think is genius because they're not going to have the same reach as a D1 superstar. However, they do have reach. How would you recommend these younger player or these players at smaller schools making those connections, making those deals, and leveraging them to help set them up financially for college and post college?
Yeah, so we teach a whole section on connecting with a local business, right? Understanding what the mindset is of a local business person, what he or she is worried about most, how to tell your story about your audience. And you could have as few as 500 followers on Instagram, but if they're all in your hometown and you can influence them to come to a pizza special on Thursday nights and 100 people go to the pizza shop and sell a 11.99 dinner special, that's real value to that business owner, right? So we teach them how to identify the business. We teach them how to connect with them, what to say, what the email should look like, going in, shaking hands, personalize your story. We teach them about how to create a an Instagram post, how to create specials, how to create campaigns, how to leverage your audience in your hometown for camps, for clinics, for charitable work, how to use community service and philanthropy as a connector to local businesses and a way to build your brand and grow your following. That's all we teach at our program called Unlocking Influence, which is where we teach people how to unlock the influence that they have over their future.
What are some of the bigger mistakes you see college players, college athletes making when it comes to capitalizing on their NIL?
I think the biggest mistake is they don't do anything, right? Either they're lazy or they put up the walls that say it's not for me, or they're just not that motivated until it's too late, right? So you have to treat it like a job. You have to treat it like a class. You have to treat it like it's investing in your future, right? And the biggest mistake I see is apathy. I believe that young people today are motivated. They want to be great. They want to be successful. They want to get to a place that they think represents where they like to live their life, but they're not self-starters. They don't know how to get started. And so we start with really basic things that you can do today. Literally start today to building your brand, telling your story, and networking. And so we make it relatable to everybody and we make it attainable, right? I think the biggest thing is you say it's not for me because I'm not a power four quarterback at a Division I football school, right? Or I'm not a Division I basketball at some major college program. And so I think apathy and doing nothing is the biggest roadblock to success.
Hmm. Kind of that, not necessarily analysis by paralysis, because, well, I guess some could fall under that, but also at the same time, it's just the complete shutdown of the idea. They're not even analyzing the idea because they don't think it's a possibility for themselves.
What we do is we ask the first question in every group that we work with, what does success look like to you, Jenny? Not 5 years or 10 years, like 15, 20 years from now. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to live? What does your life look like? What does your family situation look like? What kind of professional career do you want? Do you want to own a business? Do you want to have employees? Do you want to live in a city? You want to live in the country? As many things as you can dream about as possible. Then what are the milestones that you need to achieve in order to get there? Right. And I answer the first two. You got to graduate and get your first job. Right.
Mhm.
But what else? Who do you have to network with? What do you have to learn? What classes do you have to take? What grades do you need to get into grad school? Build a plan. Don't just parachute in as a senior in college and say, all right, I'm ready to get a great job. Hope somebody's going to pay me a lot of money. Because it's not going to happen. 55% of college graduates are underemployed. It's a very scary number.
Mhm.
They're waiting tables, they're bussing tables. They took a meaningless sales job. They're working in a warehouse. They're working retail at Abercrombie and Fitch or whatever it is with a college degree. If that's what you want, great. But don't waste your money on college then. It's a waste. And unfortunately, American education system isn't preparing kids to get a job. They're teaching them a lot of classes that don't make a difference.
Yeah. Do you work with schools or do the athletes have to find you?
Both, but at the college level, I work with schools. At the high school level, I work with high school athletes and their families, and their mindset's a little bit different. They're not as career driven, so we try to meet them where they are. What's important to a high school student? What's important to a high school athlete? They want to get to a good school. They want to play sports. All right, so that's their first two steps. Just like graduating, getting a job is to a college athlete, getting an opportunity to play sports at a great academic institution, educational institution are the first two steps. And then we challenge the parents, what does success look like to you for your son or daughter? And then what are the milestones that we need to achieve? But it's the same principles because the college coach wants to know who you are as a person. That's your personal brand, right? What does the college coach think of you when he gets done watching the film or he watches you play at a showcase tournament during the summertime, right? How do you tell your story? How do you connect with that coach and tell him who you really are? Why you'd be a valuable part of the team, your leadership, your commitment, your hard work, your caring, your social behaviors. And then network. How do you learn how to reach out to coaches and talk to them so that you get on their radar? I have a son that's a college coach at a Division I school. Last summer, he told me he gets 150 emails a day from high school kids wanting to come to his program.
Wow.
There's no way he's reading those. There's no way. No one is. So how do you differentiate yourself as a high school athlete to create those opportunities? So it's the same concepts, but a little bit different focus, and the first two milestones are different in high school than they are in college.
How do they differentiate themselves?
Well, you got to build a brand. Who are you?
Yeah.
Not only can you, kick the ball left foot and right foot or hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball or shoot three-pointers or you're a certain size, but you saw last night at the University of Indiana with only 8 5-star recruits. What did the coach recruit? Teamwork, hard work, perseverance, right? Determination, commitment. So how do you tell that story? How do you show people that that's who you really are? That you're not a prima donna that got a trophy every Saturday morning for waking up and going to soccer practice.
As a high schooler, would you recommend creating a sports page? I know some of my athletes have done that where it is specifically their career in sport, and that's how they're building their online presence. Because I also know parents who don't really want their child on social media, or they are nervous about the use of social media.
Yeah, it's a fine edge, right? I think yes, it can be a great platform, and yes, it's important. I've talked to college recruiters and evaluators, and they use things like Twitter to look at high school athletes and their performance. So I think it is important to do. But I get the concerns, and I get the over-the-top athletes or young people today that are doing negative harm to themselves using social media to feel better about themselves, and it's a big mental health conversation. But it is a great communication platform, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, right, or even YouTube, right, to tell your story and build your brand. I think there's somewhere in the middle is the truth.
There seems to be a lot of pressure on high schoolers who are going through a recruiting process, and I've known some of my athletes uh, probably unnecessarily stressing themselves out over going to certain camps and really promoting themselves. Um, does it matter how much that they're putting out there, how many camps they're going to, or does it more so matter the quality?
Great question. I'm going to lean towards the quality answer. I've been around thousands of athletes, right? I've coached athletes. I've worked in the professional athletic space and sports and entertainment for 15 years in Los Angeles. Um, you can work really hard and be a really good athlete, but if you're not a certain height or you don't run a certain speed or you're not a certain strength, you're going to be limited, right? And a Division I athlete, let's call it Division I athlete, is different, right? A professional athlete is way different. When a professional athlete walks in the room, just look at their neck, look at their shoulders, look at their hands, right? Look at their legs, right? If it's a female, running sport like rugby or soccer or something like that, look at their legs, right? They're different than the average bear, as they say. And so I think you can develop skills. I think you can improve a lot with your sport. But at the end of the day, you either have a certain level of ability or you don't. But you need to showcase that. You need to improve it. I think the answer to your question is we have a society problem, right? And the society problem is what I described in the beginning. We love sports. We idolize athletes.
Mhm.
Then we have a parenting problem, right? We have out of control parents. Their biggest goal is they want to go to the country club on Friday night and tell everybody that little Jenny just got a scholarship to play rugby at a Division I school. That's their goal,
Hmm.
right? And they want that to happen so bad that they pay for travel. They pay for new cleats every 2 months. They pay for personal trainers. They pay for crazy club teams. Um, and that inadvertently puts a lot of pressure on the young athlete to meet their parents' expectations. And that's a mental health crisis issue again. And so that's why we try to look into the future. What does success look to you like to you, and understand a little bit more of the balance of what it takes to get there.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Kind of gearing it a little bit back towards college. So we have that high school player who their priority is get into a good school and play sports. They get into the good school, they're playing the sport, and then we have, okay, get a job, you have opportunities after graduation. Have you worked with athletes who their ideal job after graduation is to play professional sports? And it doesn't have to be in the US because I think too many athletes in the US are siloed and they think that the only way to continue to play sports is if they are playing in the US, but there are plenty of other opportunities abroad. And do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, 100%. And, every young person thinks they're going to the league, right? Everyone thinks that. And that's a good goal. And if that's your goal, great. You should work really hard to get there. And, sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's breaks, injuries, but it's an inexact science. And I will always tell people that maybe the most sophisticated sports league in the world is the National Football League, the NFL, right? No one has more resources. No one has more science. No one has more background. No one has more data, and they still don't get it right all the time,
Hmm.
right? How many draft picks in the first round are busts, right? It's an inexact science. And so if you're going to bet your life on that inexact science, then you better be prepared to fail, because that's probably what the large percentage of kids are going to do. So you need to build up a backup plan. And here's the point of that is so many kids and parents and society put so much on sports that we like to say, what do you do when the ball stops bouncing, right? When your career is over, whether it was your choice or not. You got cut, you got injured, you timed out on your eligibility. You know, what is that Jenny represents when you look in the mirror? Is it Jenny still the rugby player, even though rugby isn't an option anymore? Or is it Jenny that was a great rugby player, but also has a great future in life and in business and personal life, whatever it is? And that helps that self image, because when you look in the mirror and see broken down athlete, that's a crisis.
Hmm. When dealing with an athlete who is wrapped up in their identity as an athlete, how do you help that athlete become more of a just a person? Because that's a hard uh, topic and issue that a lot of athletes face upon graduation because that has been their identity for so long.
Yeah, more and more, because we start when they're 6 and 8, giving them trophies for every time they get out of bed on Saturday morning, as I said. Yeah, you have to have a conversation about, if it went away, who are you? What are you interested in? Are you interested in food? Are you interested in cars? Are you interested in art, science? Do you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? What if you just want to be a technology person, right? And you want to sell software? Great. What if you want to be a teacher? What if you want to be a coach? Right? What if you just want to be a parent, a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad? Those are all okay as long as you work as hard towards those as you did towards sports. We need balance,
Mhm.
right? Because we know that the sport's going to go away. Even Tom Brady had to retire at some point, right? And he played till he was 45. So we try to teach them, impart upon them the message that as important as sports is to you right now, at some point it's going to be taken away. And what do you see when you look in the mirror?
I think that ties in really well to the whole topic of this, which was like name, image, and likeness, because most most fans relate to the athlete more as a human, more as a person than they do as an athlete. And they're not, yeah, they admire them for their athletic abilities, but the local player who does a pizza night, who also has a hobby in car shows, right? And then they have a whole other audience that now relates and resonates with the athlete, not for their athletic ability, but because they also share a hobby. So it's good to have those other outlets because it gives you more connections with more people other than just sports.
And I think it gives you balance for your sport, right? You can't be obsessed 24/7. You need other things in your life to distract you, to take you away, to keep you fresh. That we call it burnout, right? When
Mhm.
it's 24/7. And I think the age of specialization is a problem too. These kids are playing the same sport year round. And I know that from talking to college coaches, these kids are coming in to college as freshmen, first year athletes. They're already injured. They're already burned out. They've been playing their sport year round for 4 years. They've already played essentially four college seasons because they play their high school season, their travel team season or two, right? All summer long. And there's no balance in their life. And they're physically breaking down. A lot of injuries.
Yeah, as a strength and conditioning coach, I see it all the time, and it's tough navigating from a programming side because I'm working with athletes who are playing all they don't have a downtime. So it's really difficult to build up their physical qualities when there is no time to rest and it's actual time to build up the qualities. We're always trying to manage workload because they have camp this weekend or a big tournament the next weekend. So it's a constant battle.
It's hard to tell parents to take a season off. Parents won't do it. Kids don't want to do it. But I think in retrospect, us, adults that have been around for a while, and especially me, having worked with so many high school and college athletes now, if you take a summer off between your sophomore and junior year in high school, it's not going to affect your ultimate landing spot. It's just not. I promise you, it's not. In fact, it could affect it positively because you stay healthy, you're refreshed, you come back, you play better.
That cannot go understated, though, just staying healthy.
You know,
Where do you see NIL heading in kind of the near future? Because, like you said, there was little guidance when the NCAA was like, you know what, fine, name, image and likeness, make money off of it. They left it up to the states, left it up to the schools. Where do you see it going?
well, my crystal ball broke a long time ago, so I'm really not sure what the future looks like, but I'll give you some thoughts. I think we're going to continue to see the proliferation of the Power Four revenue generating sports. Maybe football's going to break away, create its own league. I don't think basketball will because the March Madness is so uh, intensely tied to revenue. So probably there'll be a governing body like the NCAA for basketball that stays in place. Football may have its own governing body. They may break away from the NCAA. But that's not name, image, and likeness. I'm focused on the 98%. I believe that we're going to continue to see the proliferation of society loving athletes. I believe that athletes are going to learn how to tell their story better and build a personal brand. And I think that brands and marketing people around the world are going to realize how powerful athletes are because they have a following, because they have an engagement. Athletes have a 3 to 5 times greater engagement rate than a traditional influencer. Why? Because we relate to them, we connect with them. We want to hear their story. I mean, look at the quarterback at Indiana, Fernando Mendoza. All they talked about last night was his family history. His father played high school football in Miami. His mom is suffering from a medical uh, event right now. Those make him relatable. Those make him interesting. I don't know because I haven't looked today, but my guess is his social media followers have grown in the last week because of his off the field stories. And I think that will continue to play a role, Division two, Division three, mid-major, non-revenue sports, as long as the athletes learn those three skills that we teach.
That's awesome.